This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Psalm 27:13 through 14. So right here from the beginning, guys, I'm just going to admit to you, I'm not in a good mood. And I don't mean like this morning I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I am not in a good mood at all. For all intents and purposes, I feel like I'm kind of walking through a little bit of a dark night of the soul here, and that's not to get any of y'all's sympathy, and I don't need cards in the mail or things like that, but it's interesting that for whatever reason, I fall upon Psalm 27, and so that is just one thing that I want to give you guys as an encouragement, that if you run into any problems, and I know I'm kind of preaching here right from the beginning, but we're talking about some stuff today, a lot of it's good, some of it's not so fun, but try to lean on Scripture as much as possible. Guys, that's why Joby and I started the Daily Blade, is so that guys like you can get that quick 5-minute shot of Scripture to get the sword of the Spirit in your life. So just wanted to kind of start there. So if I seem a little bit perturbed or a little bit curt today, that's probably why. But let's talk about happy things. Church 1122 Men's Conference, Jacksonville, Florida, October 17th through 18th. The speakers: Joby Martin, Willie Robertson of Duck Dynasty fame, the great John Tyson who wrote The Intentional Father, Brian Loritz, and yours truly will be speaking there. There will be some other speakers and some different things. Guys, I'm promising you this will sell out. I think they sold like a quarter of the tickets like on the first day that everything was available or something like that. I haven't really kept up on the ticket sales, but it is going to be a great time. Guys, it is still beautiful in Jacksonville, Florida in the middle of October. So some of you are already covered up in snow by then. So how about you come on down to Jacksonville, Florida, bring your family, spend a few days with us and have some time on the beach. Then also just want to say we are so thankful to our donors. We're just thankful for guys. Like, I got an email the other day from a guy that's like, hey, I got a new debit card and, something's going wrong on the website. Can I, whatever. And it was clearly a problem, with his phone or with his email or whatever. But just having a guy like that that's willing to, send an email and go out of his way. Like, he got a different card and he's seeking me out so that he can give this ministry more money so that we can equip men around the globe to push back darkness. I just absolutely love that. And guys, if you love this show, please leave us a 5-star review and share this with a friend, because that helps us get this out to more guys. So in the quick hitter segment today, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden solidifying himself as the worst and most corrupt president in modern American history, Jordan Peterson emphatically stating that he thinks Jesus is God, a female bishop, scare quotes, of the Episcopal Church, scare quotes, lecturing President Trump during an interfaith service on his second day back in office, the United States House of Representatives passing a bill to protect women's sports, Pete Hegseth narrowly becoming the next Secretary of Defense, and the death of the most evil woman on earth. The most evil woman on earth. Okay, so we need to talk about right here. This is going to be a very, very political podcast. We'll take a little bit of a jaunt when we talk about Jordan Peterson, but everything's fairly political today. But we need to talk about the golden age of America beginning right now. So if you watched any of the inauguration of President Trump last week, when he got up there, after he was inaugurated, he went through the entire process, and now he's speaking. He does some of his, introductory pleasantries, but the first words out of his mouth for now, again, President Trump, after he was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States of America, was the golden age of America begins right now. And what followed was one of the best speeches that Donald Trump has ever given. He's given way more speeches than I've actually listened to, but in a lot of his speeches, he'll kind of meander around. Again, he's a little bit of he goes by feel. He doesn't really do teleprompter, but this was very, very controlled, good Trump, as Ben Shapiro would say. It was very short. It was incredibly strong. It was pointed, and it got me and a bunch of other people, rather pumped up. So we're going to launch in today by digging into the beginning of Trump's term. But before we do that, I want to, talk about something here. I got a lot of people that sent me messages like, did you see that Donald Trump did not get sworn in with his hand on the Bible? So there was a still shot of Melania standing there, and Trump's got his right hand up, but his left hand is down by his side. It is not on the Bible, all those types of things. And it's like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? What is this signaling? And I'm just going to tell you right from the beginning, there is no there. Because Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who sucks at everything, apparently, right? So he's squishy. He has no courage on a lot of things where he should have courage. He started the swearing in process of Trump before Melania could get to them with the family Bible. Because if you look at that still shot, Melania is right next to Donald Trump, is to Donald Trump's left, holding the Bible. Just sitting there holding it, and you're wondering, what's going on here? Well, what's going on here is John Roberts started too soon. And so what Trump would have had to have done, which, Trump probably would have done this, just because he doesn't have any of that awkwardness of making other people feel bad, but he would have had to stop John Roberts to say, oh, hold on one sec, I need, Melania's not up here yet. which would have been, I think, the first time in U.S. history where a president actually stopped the justice from doing, the swearing in or whatever. Or he would have had in the middle of it, had to just sneak his left hand over on top of the Bible. And then the narrative would have been oh my gosh, why did he not want to start the swearing in with his hand on the Bible? What does that mean? Why did he put it on there towards the middle or whatever? I'm just telling you right from the beginning, there is no there. This is not a dramatic thing. This is no controversy. But we need to talk about some of, before we talk about that, actually, I want to talk about one of the greatest of all time moments, one of the GOAT moments that we've ever seen. If you love America, you love what happened. So let me set the scene for some of you guys that maybe missed it. So Trump and J.D. Vance had just been sworn in, okay? Things are great. Trump had done his speech, everything's good. Everyone's happy inside the rotunda because they're nice and warm. They're not outside in the frigid cold in D.C. Then they announced that country music legend, and I think that's appropriate to say now, country music legend and one of the best female vocalists of all time, arguably the best female vocalist of all time, Alison Krauss, Celine Dion notwithstanding, Carrie Underwood. She was going to come out and sing America the Beautiful. And I remember when they announced about a week beforehand that she was going to come and do that, there was none of this kerfuffle of oh my gosh, she's going to be canceled or all that because everyone's on the Trump train now. So she comes out, she's got her microphone, you can tell she's ready, and the music's supposed to hit. And then, nothing. Nothing happened. There was supposed to be music that would start, but nothing. Okay, so she's standing there. Everyone is just standing there, just waiting for the music to start so that she can sing this very, very short song. Now, this awkward silence went on for about a minute, and then you can kind of hear people in the Capitol Rotunda starting to get a little antsy. People are kind of moving around, hear some giggles. It's just kind of one of those things. It could happen at, an elementary school play, or it can happen here in the Capitol Rotunda when we're inaugurating the 47th President of the United States. And then we see some dude with a headset on walk down the middle aisle towards Carrie Underwood. He goes right up to her, and he essentially says, hey, we can't get the music to start. And then this happens.
You know the words, help me out here. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Okay, guys, so if you aren't watching this on YouTube or Rumble, as soon as the guy in the headset walks up and says that the song's not going to start, her response, you can kind of read her lips, is, I can just sing it. She is in complete control. I can just sing it, right? And she just immediately gets after it. Now, I'll just admit right from the beginning, I get weepy just hearing the national anthem, right? I just took my boys over the weekend to their first wrestling duel. University of Central Oklahoma, one of the greatest wrestling programs in the entire country, regardless of division. I think 17-time national championship team or whatever. So I take, my 4-year-old son and my 2-year-old son to this duel, and the national anthem starts, and I kind of get them stood up, and I tell them which hand to put over their heart and all that, and then I turn to the flag, and just about every time I listen to the national anthem, I get weepy, right? So she's singing America the Beautiful, and it's so beautiful. And obviously I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible moment. She's just singing it a cappella. She sounds so good. What a moment that we're seeing in America. And I know I'm getting weepy, but my wife is not real weepy. She doesn't get really teary-eyed and stuff like that. She doesn't really respond to it. But I look over at her, and she's on the couch, and she's got tears rolling down her face. And then I just basically can't control it there for a second. So I let a few tears let loose. But just an absolutely incredible, incredible thing. Guys, if you have not seen the video, make sure you go to our YouTube. You can see it right here. But eventually, all the festivities end, and it's time for the Trump administration, which has a nice ring to it. But it's time for them to get down to business. So the following is not an exhaustive list of what he did immediately via executive orders and the things that he announced during his inaugural address. But this has a lot to do with kind of the highlights that we saw from the first week. But a lot of these really happened in the first, 24 to 48 hours. And these are not in any particular order. But here are the things that he either did or signaled. The Mexican drug cartels are now designated as terrorist organizations, and he signaled that it is possible that we will send our own special operators into Mexico to take them out. He declared a state of emergency at the southern border. He basically removed all the restrictions that he could to unleash American oil and gas production, so drill, baby, drill. He revoked the electric vehicle mandate. He announced the launch of the External Revenue Service, tasked with collecting tariffs from foreign countries that have financially taken advantage of this country over the years. And in one of the dumbest things that he's ever had to do, he announced that it is now U.S. government policy that there are only two genders. And so I think also next week he's going to announce that 2 + 2 will always equal 4 and that water will always be wet. Also, he is going to reinstate every single United States service member that lost their jobs because they refused to take the experimental COVID vaccine, and he's going to give them all their back pay, which is incredible. He's reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy. He's renaming the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. He's not done renaming. He's renaming again Mount Denali to Mount McKinley. He intends to take back control of the Panama Canal. He pardoned and or commuted the sentences of all of the January 6 protesters / rioters. Yes, there is a difference. He deleted the CPB-1 app, which was being used by illegal immigrants to ease their way into this country. He announced an extension to figure out the future of TikTok and how that's going to be used here in America. He withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords. He withdrew funding for the World Health Organization. He signaled an end to birthright citizenship. He told all federal government DEI offices that they are to close up shop. He put a pause on government hiring. He had an executive order to declassify the JFK, RFK, and MLK Jr. files, a lot more on the MLK files next week. And then a few days in, he pardoned about 24 pro-lifers that had been imprisoned because of the FACE Act, which is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Interests Act. And then also the government website, the HHS website on abortion, was basically deleted. And that's not all, but that's what I took note of, okay? So we just had a deluge of winning and a bunch of stuff that I mega super duper agree with all at once, okay? But with all the things on that list and with all the winning that we saw in the first week, and guys, I'm recording this on Monday, you're hearing this on Thursday, so there could be some more winning going down over the next 72 plus hours. But there's kind of a top 3 things that I'm most excited about from Trump's, first, couple of days in office, okay? The first is a combo. Designating the Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations and declaring a state of emergency at our southern border. Because they are systematically working with China. These Mexican drug cartels are systematically working with China to poison and kill Americans with fentanyl. And we see, 6 figures of deaths from fentanyl every single year. And so the Mexican drug cartels need to keep people hooked, and the Chinese need to take out Americans, right? So it's like a perfect macabre marriage between the two. And they are also systematically orchestrating and profiting from illegal immigration into our country, right? So you're not seeing people that are just kind of walking across the border willy-nilly by themselves, really. What you're seeing is these Mexican drug cartels and these coyotes that are basically ferrying people across, and they're charging them to do that. And also, they don't care if these people die. We've heard Tom Homan talk about, all the immigrants that they found in the back of a tractor trailer that had basically been cooked and boiled to death because they were in such extreme heat and couldn't get out. And so the thing is signaling that he's ready to take on the Mexican drug cartels is not just something that he's signaling to the American public. He's signaling to the Mexican government, to where it's like, hey, we know y'all are corrupt as the day is long, and we know that y'all are profiting as well, and that these cartels are only in existence because of their power and because of your inability to take them out. And so we're going to do what we can to take them out or to lessen their influence in our country. And the interesting thing is you'll hear people that are not tier 1 operators or aren't really familiar with, kind of that top tier of special operations in this country. And they'll talk about how, hey man, the cartels, they've got anti-aircraft weaponry and they got night vision goggles and they got all these other different things. But when you hear real tier 1 guys talk about what we would do to the cartels if we actually took the gloves off, these guys are like, look, it was way shadier doing the stuff we were doing in the Middle East and dealing with the stuff that we couldn't know, and, the pressure plates and the IEDs and different things like that. And when you hear these guys talk about it, it's like, this would not be a hard mission to take out these people. We know exactly where they are. We know exactly what they have, and we're superior in every single way. So that's the first one. The second one is drill, baby, drill. Okay. The procurement of our own oil and natural gas as a country is essential for our foreign policy, for our defense, and for our technological future. Okay, so with the reserves that we have, specifically in Alaska, Texas, Pennsylvania, different places, North Dakota, with the things that we have in place, we can again, as we were in the first Trump administration, be a net exporter of oil and natural gas. Okay, and so if you're Europe or one of these European countries, and do you want to be controlled by having to get your oil or natural gas from Russia and have to be at the whims of whatever Russia decides they want to do? Or would you rather it be from America? And if you're America, do you want it to be them to be dependent on Russia or dependent on us? I think it's a tremendous, tremendous thing. Let's drill, baby, drill. And the third thing, and this is the thing that I'm probably most excited about out of all the winning in the first week, is the pardoning and freeing of pro-lifers that were put in prison because Democrats are huge fans of baby murder. And so you have these people that violated the FACE Act. And so basically what these people were doing is that was put in place for people that were going to like literally be blocking the doors to abortion facilities, trying to keep women from murdering their children, and, to keep people from like murdering abortionists or different things like that. But the people, so I think there were 23 people that were pardoned last week. These people, what they were doing is they would be praying outside of abortion facilities. They would be offering up counseling to women that were going in, trying to help them and trying to save their babies. They would be singing hymns. And these people were arrested and charged and convicted via the FACE Act. And there were like elderly women that were put in federal prison. Okay. And a lot of their sentences were longer than what you'll see rapists get in this country. You have people that will murder people that will be in prison for not nearly as long as what some of these people were. And so I need to reiterate and remind some of you that between putting on 3 justices that voted to end Roe v. Wade and this pardon of these pro-life, protesters, right? These pro-lifers that were put into federal prison, Donald Trump is still the most pro-life president we have ever seen. Still. Because I remember some of y'all got real squishy during the election, during the run-up to the 2024 election, okay? I got a lot of DMs and a lot of concerned emails about my support for Donald Trump because he was signaling, do y'all remember me talking about this? Signaling moderation on the abortion issue, okay? But also Kamala Harris and all them, they were trying to play both sides. They were trying to split the baby, as it were, and that's total pun intended, that they were trying to seem somewhat moderate so they didn't seem so crazy, like, hey, we're okay with babies dying even after they're born. We're totally cool with infanticide. And just showing off for their extreme side so that they could make sure that, low discernment women would come out in droves and vote for them. But a lot of people were mad at me for advocating for Trump, even though he signaled moderation on the issue. But now look, in the first week, because remember what I said? I said, look, I do not care what Trump signals that he's going to do. I care about what he is going to do. And if we look at his first 4 years when he was actually in office, he was very pro-life in the things that he allowed, in the things that he pushed for, right? And now the gloves are off. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, his first public speaking engagement after being sworn in as Vice President was speaking at the March for Life. Do y'all remember what Vice President Kamala Harris did? She was the first vice president or sitting vice president or president to speak at an abortion facility. And I tried to remind you of that. Like, guys, the Harris administration will be the most pro-abortion, pro-baby death administration in the history of this country, and it won't even be close. And y'all were like, yeah, but Trump's saying this, and yeah, but they're not saying the things that I want. And, I'm an abolitionist, and so if they don't say everything exactly how I want, then blah, 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 blah. Well, look at you. Look at you now. I'm not hearing any apologies from y'all right now, and I would love to. So you guys that were blowing up my inbox, you nerds that were sending me DMs talking about how Trump's not going to do this and Trump's not going to do that, look at what is happening now. The gloves are off with the second Trump administration, and they are pushing as hard as they possibly can in all the areas that matter to everyday Americans. So I'm waiting on your apologies. For all you people that are like, I just can't vote for Trump because he's not sufficiently pro-life enough. Guess what we'd be seeing right now if Kamala Harris was in office? Like, would her first speech as president after the inauguration would have been at, a Planned Parenthood rally or something like that? Again, I told y'all over and over and over, I don't care what they signal. I care how they negotiate, and I care how they legislate and govern, right? I don't think that Donald Trump is pro-life in his heart. I also don't care. I care how he legislates, and I care how he governs. Now, what we see through all this, guys, is an immediate difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. So in the first week, Trump's access to the media was insane. Like, he's literally sitting there signing all of these pieces of, not legislation, but all these executive orders. And the media is there in the Oval Office. He's like, okay, what's this one? Oh, this is, saying that we're, withholding funding from the World Health Organization. And then he would just flow on it for a little bit, look at the executive order, take out that obnoxiously big marker and sign his name on it. And the media's just sitting right there. Then you got a guy like Biden, who he couldn't say anything to the media if he didn't look at his note card to know who to call on next or whatever. And so his access to the media has been incredible. But also the world's starting to behave. Isn't it so interesting that Hamas was seeking a ceasefire deal as soon as Donald Trump said, hey guys, by the way, I'm going to be in office here in a couple of weeks. And if y'all don't figure this out, there's going to be hell to pay. And we know he means it. Hamas is all of a sudden like, oh, okay, we'll negotiate. And it looks like there's going to be an off-ramp coming for the war in Ukraine. At least we can certainly pray that's going to happen because Putin knows that Donald Trump is not just like a paper tiger. And also Americans, they're now, focused on policy over personality, right? Because it's clear that the United States electorate realized that they made a catastrophic boo-boo by voting Biden in as president, right? And yeah, you can miss me with all the, but he got in because of all these drop boxes where they dropped a bunch of votes. Yep, they didn't prove it in court. So until further notice, I'm going to go with what we know, which is that Joe Biden won the Electoral College in 2020, and he was president for 4 years. And there were a bunch of people that were just focused on personality. They were focused on, Donald Trump. And like my good buddy who was like, I just can't have a vote for Donald Trump on my record. And then 4 years of inflation, 4 years of this guy just kind of putting around the White House, not really knowing what to do, the Roomba of presidency or any of those types of things. After 4 years, they're like, whoopsie daisy, I guess we should focus on policy over personality. Because yeah, if you had to vote just based on personality alone, I don't know that you vote for Donald Trump. But when it came to the stuff that he was signaling from a policy side and what he's done in the first week, you got to go with him. And again, I feel it appropriate to remind everyone that I was super duper wrong about Trump's electoral chances, right? I remember whenever he announced that he was running for president again, I remember being like, this is so stupid. And I was like, let's go DeSantis, let's do all these types of things the whole way. I was like, because of January 6th and because of the media and because of the deep state, they're not going to be able to get him in. He's not going to whatever. And I was super duper wrong. Everybody was wrong, saying, hey, he might win the Electoral College, but he won't win the popular vote. And he won the popular vote even in a landslide. And so again, just a reminder, I'm right about a lot of stuff, but there are things that I'm like so unbelievably and horrifically wrong about that I feel the need to remind you guys. But as I end my commentary here on this first part, you guys got to feel some hope at this moment, don't you? Because our hope is not found in the Trump administration. Our hope is not found in America, right? Our hope is not found in any of that. Our hope is found in Christ. But man, if you're an American right now and you care about the health of America as a country and individual Americans, if you're not excited right now, I think you need to check your pulse, because I think we are about to enter an unprecedented age of prosperity as Americans, and I'm here for it. Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys are really doing everything you can to have a consistent workout routine, but the problem is you work out at a Globo gym. And so there's 17 guys on the bench that you need, and there's people doing bicep curls on the squat rack. And the biggest problem is not your schedule. It's actually where you're trying to get your work in. How about you guys stop making excuses and build yourself a home gym? And when you do, make sure you use Sorinex. So Sorinex is a family-owned and operated business that builds some of the most impressive workout facilities in the entire world. They built gyms for teams in the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and even the UFC. They've also built gyms for some of the biggest and most successful collegiate and high school athletic programs in the country. But in addition to that, they make the highest quality home gym products that I've ever seen on the market. In my personal home gym, I have the Sorinex Outfitter Rack, the heavy version in military green. Also, I have some of their center mass bells. I've got their Nordic glute ham developer and their patented landmine attached to my rack. So guys, stop fighting the riffraff at your local gym or bench or squat rack or whatever. And if you're going to build out a home gym, you may as well get one that will last you and one that you could even pass down to your kids. Begin your build out by going to Sorinex.com. That is Sorinex.com, Sorinex.com. Take control of where and when you work out, Sorinex.com. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the quick hitters. First one here, Joe Biden solidifying himself as the worst and most corrupt president in modern American history. So this is according to Newsweek on January the 19th. A full list of individuals granted clemency. Well, actually, I'm not actually reading it here. So he does this article here that will be in the show notes. It gives a list of the people that he granted clemency, but also it really speaks on the people that he granted clemency and pardoned like literally at the 11th hour, right before he was no longer going to be president. So there were some randos, like people that were convicted of campaign finance charges and tax evasion charges and mail fraud and a bunch of drug dealers and crap like that. But here are the ones that everyone should not soon forget. Biden's siblings and their spouses. So Biden issued pardons for his brothers James Biden and Francis Biden, sister Valerie Biden Owens, and sister-in-law Sarah Jones Biden, and brother-in-law John Owens. Anthony Fauci. So Fauci, again, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during the COVID-19 pandemic in Trump's first administration. And then we have General Mark Milley, who Milley was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during Trump's first presidency. Members of the staff of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. So that's lawmakers that were involved in the final report. And those were Chair Benny Thompson, Vice Chair Liz Cheney, Zoe Lofgren, whatever, Adam Schiff, Pete Aguilar, Stephanie Murphy, James Raskin, Elaine Luria, and Adam Kinzinger. And then also Leonard Peltier, whatever. Biden commuted the sentence of the Native American rights activist who was convicted of killing 2 FBI agents on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in 1975. So let's go right to the big takeaway here. Joe Biden was the president of the most corrupt administration in modern U.S. history, but also he was the dawn of the Biden crime family. Okay? And he will never have to answer for that this side of glory. Because let's go back to his pardoning of his son and also his siblings. The pardon started in 2014, which was before all the influence peddling and all the stuff that he was basically profiting from. Because his family, all of his family members has this web of LLCs that they're a part of, obviously trying to hide money that's being taken. And so he's not going to have to answer for that. Anthony Fauci is not going to have to answer for any of the fraudulent things that he did to push the American public into taking the COVID-19 vaccine, and also the stuff about him basically being on the front end of gain-of-function research and things like that. He's not going to have to answer for that. Mark Milley is not going to have to answer for the disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. The January 6th committee people, all these people that were just trying to create some narrative that there was actually an attack and that democracy was almost overtaken and all that, they're not going to have to answer for any of the evidence in any of the videos that they hid that weren't a part of their final report. And then I just put that Leonard Peltier guy there at the end because, again, Joe Biden doesn't care about murderers. I mean, this guy literally murdered 2 FBI agents in cold blood, and he commuted this person's sentence, okay? And so for a guy like Joe Biden, again, he will be remembered as the worst president in modern history, even worse than Jimmy Carter. And I know Jimmy Carter just died here recently, but he was an awful president, okay? He was an atrociously bad president. But then when you look at Joe Biden, again, I know there's recency bias and things like that, but when you just compare those two guys side by side, like, absolutely horrifically bad, not only as individuals, but for this country. But the added thing that Joe Biden has over a Jimmy Carter is deep and abiding corruption. And it was deep and abiding corruption that enriched himself and people that shared his last name to the detriment of the United States public and the United States electorate. So it is what it is. I'm glad the administration is over, but we're going to be wearing these scars for a little bit. All right, next quick hitter here. We're going to take a jaunt out of the world of political, but don't worry, we'll get right back in. Jordan Peterson emphatically stating that he thinks Jesus is God. So obviously we've talked about Jordan Peterson a ton on this show. I've talked about a lot of how important he is to Christianity, even though he's not a Christian himself and he can't, hasn't been able to answer the question, do you even believe in God? But there have been a lot of people that have been very interested in Christianity, in the Bible, and Jesus because of Jordan Peterson and his interest in the Bible and Jesus and things like that. But even after all that, there's no clear evidence that he believes in God nor in Jesus. We haven't really seen that really for all these years that we've been paying attention to his words and watching his videos. But in an interview with an atheist last year, Alex O'Connor, he said that he believes that Jesus rose from the dead. Remember, like Alex O'Connor was like, hey, what if there was a camera, pointed at the mouth of Joseph of Arimathea's tomb and we had a monitor and we were watching it? What would we expect to see 3 days after Jesus was buried there? And he said, I presume we would see Jesus walk out of that tomb, right? So he thinks that Jesus was a real man that was flesh and bones, but that he rose from the dead. He was resurrected from the dead. But still, even after that admission, there's no clear evidence that he believes in God nor in Jesus' resurrection and that it counted for him specifically. But then Jordan Peterson recently appeared on the popular The Diary of a CEO podcast. And there were a lot of interesting moments in this interview, but one clip stood out above them all, and it went mega viral inside and outside of Christian circles. So let's actually go to the clip here.
What is the God you believe in? I think that the claim that Christ is the embodiment of the prophet and the laws, I think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So,
that's complicated. It's very, very complicated. But I think it's true.
so you believe that Jesus was
God?
God?
Yeah.
So guys, this is just a stunning thing to hear him say. And he was emphatic about it. And there were many atheists that were disappointed to hear Jordan Peterson say this. Many intellectuals and many Christians were absolutely overjoyed in hearing this because, again, with Christians, like, we want cool people on our team. Remember the Kanye West thing? Like, oh, he became a Christian. He's a gospel artist now. Like, oh, he's on our team. Oh, he's wearing a MAGA hat. He's on our team. It's like, okay, live by the Kanye, die by the Kanye. But my big takeaway on this is even with Jordan Peterson saying that he believes that Jesus was a real person that was crucified, murdered, and resurrected, and that he considers him to be God, there is now clear evidence that he believes in God, right? Which he hasn't been able to admit, but there's clear evidence that he does actually believe in God, but he does not believe that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross counted for him. At least not yet. There is no evidence whatsoever that he believes in the resurrection for himself, right? So again, this is what Joby has taught a lot of people, which is like, okay, there's, I think, Spishtuo, where it's like belief in something. Like you can believe that it is a chair over there in the corner, but it's another thing to believe in the chair that it will hold your weight up. So he might believe that Jesus was resurrected from the dead, but he has not yet gone over the precipice and believed that that counted for him. And so I was reminded, as all these people were reacting to that video about James 2, verse 19, you believe that there is one God, good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. So him believing in God is exciting, but not enough, right? Him believing in Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus is exciting, but it's not enough because even the demons believe that. And then, Wes Huff, when he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, I know we've talked about that a lot here lately, he said there's just something keeping Jordan Peterson from crossing over. So for all you hyper-Calvinists out there, it's because maybe he's not elect. Maybe he's just Christian curious and that's all he'll ever be, and it doesn't really matter because he's not elect. He wasn't chosen before time in memoriam, whatever. But there's something that's keeping him from jumping over. Is it pride? Is it satanic influence? It's just not his time yet? Like, we don't exactly know. But again, to the Christians out there that are excited that, he's on Team Christ now, he's really not. I think he is a net positive for Christendom because I don't think he's saying anything that, kind of puts him in the wolves and sheep's clothing category. But we just need to be careful about saying that he's part of the team right now and that he's a Christian. Okay, let's go to the next one here. This one is infuriating and hilarious all kind of at the same time. But a female, again, scare quotes, bishop of the Episcopal, scare quotes, church, lecturing President Trump, during an interfaith service on his second day back in office. So, the day after Trump was inaugurated, he attended an interfaith prayer service, okay? Now, you can get mad that he attended this interfaith service. Like, what is an interfaith service if it's not just like this heretical, gaggle of nonsense? But one of the speakers was a female bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Washington named Marianne Budde, okay? Budde, I think it's pronounced Budde. So, which is to say that she is a non-pastor representing a denomination that has long since been connected with true biblical Christianity in any way whatsoever. So this is a person who's literally not a pastor, just wearing a robe, right? This is like ridiculous. This is like dress up time. So, as you might expect, this chick bishop thought, wow, this will be a great opportunity for me to speak my truth, right? To speak truth to power, to become a hero to the atheistic left in the United States of America. And she definitely took her shot. So let's go to the clip here.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world.
All right, so let's break this down. So she implored, well, actually, let me back up just a little bit. This is like definitionally using God's name in vain. Okay, so I grew up, again, country music theology. No one went to church. We were just born in Oklahoma and listened to country music and voted Republican, so we're Christians, right? You know, if you said GD, right, then that was using the Lord's name in vain. Like, or if it's like, oh my God, like that was using the Lord's name in vain. This is using the Lord's name in vain. She's pretending to be a pastor. She's pretending to even believe. And this is a woman that doesn't believe in the, in the Trinity, doesn't believe in, the virgin birth, doesn't believe in the deity of Christ, all these different things. And so even getting up there and saying God, that's using the Lord's name in vain. Okay, so that's what this is. But to break down what she actually said, she implored Trump to, quote, have mercy on the people in this country that are scared now, unquote. To which I would say, scared of what exactly? Scared of what? Being deported? Well, if you are here illegally, you've broken the law, which means that you are a criminal. And even if you haven't done any other criminal acts since you've been here, simply the act of coming over our supposedly sovereign borders illegally means that you don't have the right to stay here. And if you are caught, that you could be deported. But that's not really what she was implying. They're just scared. Just scared? We're scared of what? Because here's the thing. If they're scared of what, it's being deported. Are you scared of being deported? Well, what are you being deported for? For being in this country illegally. Like, this is kind of an easy flowchart thing. But wait, if you're here illegally, that would make you a criminal. Like, this is not hard. We're pretending like, oh, they have to do additional crimes aside from the one. Like, imagine if we treated every criminal like that. Okay, so grand theft auto, you steal someone's vehicle. You get pulled over by the police. We find the stolen car. You're clearly the person that stole the car. And they were just like, well, you've only committed one crime. So we're just going to have to let you go until you murder somebody or knock over a grocery store or, steal another vehicle. Like, we wouldn't treat anyone else like that. But then she implored Trump to have mercy on the LGBTQ plus children in America that, quote, fear for their lives, unquote. Now, why would supposedly LGBTQ children in America be fearing for their lives? Oh, wait, they have no reason to fear for their lives in America. Because that's the truth. The only reason that LGBTQ youth in this country are fearful for their lives is because of fear-mongering Democrats and leftist media types and wacko liberal non-church, pastors in America, but I repeat myself on all those, telling you that the world's out to get you, right? That when Trump gets into office, he's going to be sending people in with balaclavas on and, wraparound sunglasses, and they're going to come in with their ARs, and they're going to come grab you out of your second-hour classroom because you got purple hair, a nose ring, and you identify as queer, which none of that's going to happen ever, right? This isn't the Middle East where if they find out that you're gay, they're going to toss you off of a building, right? This isn't the Middle East like in Iran where there's high levels of people that are identifying as trans because they have same-sex attraction. And in order to basically have sex with the same sex, they're going to pretend to be the opposite gender so that they don't get thrown off the tops of buildings. There's no reason for these children to be fearful. And yet, Marianne Buddy is, thinking that's the case. And she also said, quote, the vast majority of illegal immigrants are not criminals, unquote. Now, guys, again, this is only true if you don't have a functioning brain or you don't know how words work. Because, again, if you illegally enter a country, you are definitionally a criminal. Now, you might be a quote-unquote good person. You might, just want to live the American dream and all that, but you cheated, right? You came in the back door. You didn't go through the front door. You didn't try to do things on the up and up. You didn't, spend the years and years process of being able to come here and immigrate legally. You cheated, okay? So I don't have any sympathy for you. And we shouldn't have any sympathy for these people in terms of what they've done. Now, there's a conversation to be had about the people that we would prefer to have in this country versus the people that we would prefer to not be in this country. But for them to say the vast majority of illegal immigrants are not criminals, the reality is all of them are. Some of them have only done one crime, though. Also, she implored Trump to have mercy on the children who fear that their parents will be taken away from them. So again, as I told you and as I signaled, every leftist media person, everyone in the New York Times and MSNBC, they've got their cameras and their pens ready to go. They're waiting for the criminal dad who, is an MS-13 or Trinidad or whatever being taken away, and all of a sudden you've got his kid crying there. But Tom Homan, the new director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, already said that he would deport intact family units. So if the entire family is here illegally and if it just so happens that the father is a criminal, it's like, okay, well, we can deport the entire family unit because none of the family unit is legally allowed to be here. Again, this may sound a little bit harsh, but you don't have a country, you don't have sovereignty if you can't have laws and if you can't enforce your borders. Also, this supposed bishop implored Trump to help those fleeing war zones and persecution in their home countries. Just by saying that, she's admitting that she knows almost nothing about the overwhelming majority of quote-unquote asylum seekers that enter this country and are subsequently caught and released, okay? Almost none of these people are fleeing political persecution in their home countries. They're not. What they are fleeing is crappy countries, right? With crappy economies and a crappy corrupt government. That's what they're fleeing, okay? But that is not the point of asylum seeking. If you don't like your country and you want to immigrate to this country, which I've been reliably informed is very, very racist and harsh towards, brown people and black people, right? But we just keep having droves of those people wanting to be here for some reason. But you have to look at, why are they here? Are they here because they want more economic opportunity? I can totally see that, and I can agree with that, but they don't get to come in the back door. They have to come in through the front door if they want to immigrate here. But people that are actual asylees, right, that are actually fearing persecution, that is not the overwhelming majority. That's not even a huge percentage of these people. Also, she said this, quote, "Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger," unquote. But do you know what she leaves out? She uses that quote, which is not a quote of scripture. That's just a quote of her own meanderings inside of her own head. She leaves out any description or prescription whatsoever of God or Jesus in the Bible advocating for open borders or the demonization of a country's sovereignty, which is so interesting. Because it's interesting because it's not in there, right? You can search through the Bible and you can have the most liberal, left-leaning seminary possible, and you can't come to the conclusion that God or, God incarnate in Jesus is pro-open borders and doesn't think that country should have sovereignty. You just don't see it in there. Also, she uses this quote, "We were all once strangers in this land," unquote. Really? All of us? Because I wasn't. You know why? I was born here, right? I was very blessed and lucky to be born on the precious red clay of Oklahoma, which is located inside of the United States of America. Now, some of my ancestors weren't, because I'm Choctaw Indian, right? So they weren't strangers to this land. But I was when I was born, or I wasn't when I was born. I was born here. Some of my ancestors are from Ireland and Scotland and other places over there. Like, they were strangers until some of them immigrated here. So I have people that were here before America was America on this, land mass. And then I had people that were here after America was established, right? They came over here. But as far as I know, Marianne Buddy was born here too. Thus, she's not a stranger to this land. I'm not a stranger to this land. And people are looking at like, okay, so, a quarter of a millennium ago, this was a nation of immigrants where a lot of immigrants were able to just come here. Well, yeah, but we're several hundred years later now. And so we don't have to have the exact same policy as we did then, right? The nation is in a different state. It's in a different maturity level. And so to advocate for the fact that we should have the exact same immigration policy as we had back then is foolish. It's absolutely foolish. Oh, we were all once strangers in this land. No, if you were born here, you were never a stranger in this land. Just like Italians that were born in Italy or Chileans that were born in Chile. Like, these people are not foreigners to their own land. They're not strangers to their own land. They have the right to be there because they were born there, right? They weren't naturalized. They weren't immigrated into this area. They were born there. So my big takeaway on this one, this person, this woman, she advocates that we speak the truth to one another in love, right? That's how she kind of ends this whole thing. Let's speak the truth to one another in love. So here's some truth that I will speak to Bishop Marianne Buddy in love. You are not a pastor nor a bishop. The Episcopal Church is an apostate church, and you have every right to criticize our president, even from your fake pulpit, but you clearly know almost nothing about what you speak. She is a left-wing political advocate, and now she's a hero. She went on The View like a day or two later. Like, they're selling T-shirts with her on it. They've got votive candles that people burn and celebrate this woman. That's what she's here to be. A left-wing advocate for the, this, woke zeitgeist. That's who this woman is. But we should not dignify her. Every time I used bishop, her title, I was doing so with tongue-in-cheek and certainly with a lot of, heaping amounts of sarcasm. But this is not a serious person. And whoever on Trump's advance team that did not vet this person, you've got Trump and Vance sitting there in the front row with their wives having to listen to this nonsense spewed by this non-pastor. Where was the advance team on this one? You simply can't do that. I mean, I like what Trump came out later and he said, it was a very nasty thing for her to do, to use that opportunity to, basically spew all these left-wing talking points. And he's exactly right about that. So I can assume that they're going to tighten the ship a little bit as it pertains to stuff like that in the future. All right, let's get to this next one here. I had to add this one pretty late because Pete Hegseth narrowly became the next Secretary of Defense. So this is according to USA Today. Because this all went down last Friday, so about a week ago. The Senate narrowly confirmed Pete Hegseth on Friday as Secretary of Defense, a win for President Donald Trump's new administration after its 44-year-old nominee fended off allegations of sexual assault, public drinking and intoxication, and abusive treatment of women. A former Fox News host and military veteran, Hegseth secured support from all but 3 Republicans to win confirmation with a 51-50 vote, with Vice President J.D. Vance breaking the tie. So I use this USA Today language real quick before I get into my big takeaway. So this is USA Today. And so they, in the lead paragraph, he fended off allegations of sexual assault, public drinking and intoxication, and abusive treatment of women. All of those things are completely unsubstantiated. All of them. Okay? So allegations of sexual assault, right? So that was adjudicated and that was looked into, and they all came to the conclusion that Pete Hegseth was, a philanderer and he cheated on his spouse, but that the sex that he had with these women was consensual, all consensual, right? Also, the public drinking and intoxication, there were all these rumors, he was on the Fox News set super drunk all the time. Well, guess what? You know who didn't say any of that happened? The people that worked with him on the Fox News set. They couldn't find a single person that had any evidence whatsoever and even claimed that he was so drunk that he couldn't do his job. So that wasn't a thing. And then abusive treatment of women. It came out that I think it was his second wife that was like scared for her life at one point and all that. And the report came from Pete Hegseth's ex-sister-in-law. So it was Pete Hegseth's brother's ex-wife. Okay? She was the one making this claim. You know who didn't make the claim? Pete Hegseth's ex-wife. The woman subject matter of this, through her attorney, basically said, this is super false. I never feared for my life physically whenever I was married to Pete Hegseth. I'm not going to be talking about my marriage to Pete publicly, but I was never abused physically or otherwise. Please stop talking about this. And so none of those allegations stuck, and yet USA Today puts it in the lead paragraph. And then also, look at how they frame Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News host and military veteran. The lead is he's a former Fox News host. Again, they're using that to denigrate him. This is a Princeton graduate and a Harvard graduate and a military veteran. Okay? Very, very impressive man who's coming to basically wreck shop in the DOD and to, make our fighting force lethal again. But, he's a Fox News host. Okay. Let's get to my big takeaway here. So, there were 3 people that didn't vote for him in this whole thing. Mitch McConnell, and then you've got Susan Collins, Republican from Maine, and Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska. But let me talk about Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell currently is not relevant, okay? He's on his way out. He's obviously not as sharp as he used to be, but he is one of the most effective Senate majority and minority leaders in modern Republican Party history, okay? He takes a massive L on this one. I saw the video of after he cast his no vote for Pete Hegseth, walking over and shaking the hands with Democrats and all that. Yeah, don't love any of that. He takes an L for this one, but I will not stand for the McConnell hate, okay? I will not stand for it because his maneuverings during the Obama administration opened the door to allow for the 3 Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump was able to get on, right? Which overturned Roe v. Wade. That's Mitch McConnell, okay? Cocaine Mitch is the man, right? So he's kind of turned into this irrelevant tortoise, but he's still the man. However, Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, they need to be primaried. They've got to go. They've absolutely got to go. Because when it comes to these nominations, right, again, all the allegations of abuse and drunkenness and all these types of things, none of them could be substantiated. And yet these women still decided to vote against Pete Hegseth. Why? Why? They've yet to provide real evidence as to why J.D. Vance had to rush down to the Senate chambers to give the final and confirming vote for Pete Hegseth. But my main argument for why these two ladies need to be primaried and taken out of their posts, as long as we can get a Republican in there that can win, is both of them, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, voted for Rachel Levine. Remember? The guy that liked to dress up like a woman, probably because he's autogynephilic. They got him confirmed as the assistant health secretary. So they voted for a guy to a health position that at best is a disgusting, has a disgusting fetish, and at worst is severely mentally ill. But they just couldn't bring themselves to vote for Pete Hegseth because of completely unsubstantiated allegations of drunkenness and spousal abuse. Help me understand. Now, again, I know Maine is a purple state at best, and Alaska can be fairly purple. These are moderates. These are women that are fairly left on some things and somewhat right on other things. But they do have an R by their name, okay? And so for the Senate majority, you've got to make sure that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski don't become the thing that keeps Trump from getting done what he needs to get done. Because this is evidence of future Senate fights, okay? Because if you're the Democrats and you can peel off 3 Republicans, right? Again, you've still got J.D. Vance as the main vote. But what happens in 2 years if the Republicans lose the House and the Senate? It's not a good thing. So they need to take care of business and get this, squared away pretty soon. All right, next quick hitter here. The U.S. House of Representatives passing a bill to protect women's sports. So this is according to the Daily Wire on January the 14th. On Tuesday, the GOP-led House once again passed legislation that aims to protect women's sports leagues by trying to keep male athletes who identify as females from competing. 2 Democrats, Representatives Henry Cuellar of Texas and Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, joined the 206 Republicans in voting for the Protection of Women and Girls Act. Another 206 Democrats, some of whom argued the bill would have invasive consequences and is supported by bigoted folks, voted against the legislation. If enacted, the bill would amend the Education Amendments of 1972 to provide that for purposes of determining compliance with Title IX of such acts in athletics, sex shall be recognized based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth, adding language that says it would be a violation for recipients of federal aid to allow a person whose sex is male to participate in a sports program for women or girls. Okay, there is a necessity for bills like this because it literally protects women and girls. Okay, we live in this time where, my safety is going to be violated if I can't take a dump in the bathroom of my choosing. My safety is going to be violated if someone challenges my philosophy. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about literal protection. Because I've talked about on the show and shown clips and shared on social media about these girls that are literally being harmed and injured by males. Volleyball players that are getting balls spiked straight at their face and they get massive concussions, right? Because they've never had a volleyball come at them with such rapidity because they've never had a man hit a volleyball directly at their face. They've only had to deal with women, and their response time is kind of like geared for that, right? We've seen basketball players, male basketball players, that when they start going Shaq and getting the rebound and throwing elbows, well, they're hitting women, girls in the face and breaking their orbital bones, knocking them out. It's literally to protect them. But then the protection goes a little bit further into the protection of opportunities. Because every time you hear a Democrat say like, is this really that big of a deal? There's not that many boys, or they would never say that. There's not that many trans girls that are basically doing all these different things. But here's the reality. They're taking opportunities away from girls to play sports. Because if it's swimming and there's only 10 spots in the final heat to see who wins, and one of those is a boy, well, the girl that got 11th place, right, had the 11th fastest time, she's not in the final. She's not going to get to compete for a spot on the podium because there's a man there. For the girl that has her spot taken on the starting lineup on a women's basketball team or women's volleyball team or women's softball team or something like that, how is that fair to that girl? if there's literally one of those people, that girl needs to be protected from this type of an opportunity for boys to come in and encroach on their territory. So my big takeaway on this one is the voting breakdown on this bill tells you just about everything you need to know about the Democratic Party in America. Okay? They're not actually the party of feminists. They're really not. Because if you're championing protections for women and girls, wouldn't it make sense that you would champion protections of women and girls? Like in real life, that you would actually advocate for things that would protect women? But then again, they can't even define what a woman is, including Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is somehow on the Supreme Court of the United States. And also, this is the party of science, I've been reliably informed, right? They're not defending science because we can tell scientifically, this is what, when I was talking about those male boxers that were beating up women, right? We can tell scientifically that these people are not male. It comes right down to your chromosomes. And yes, it does have to do with your genitalia, right? And it's not your sex assigned at birth, it's your sex seen at birth. There is no difference between sex and gender. And yet the party of science can't seem to convince us otherwise, right? And the thing is these people that advocate, or all these Democrats that voted against this, which again, I do want to say Henry Coolier and Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, hats off to you guys. Good job for you for breaking away from your insane colleagues. But here's the thing. I know there are some true zealots in the Democratic Party. There are people that say just absolutely insane things out loud, the squad, but they don't actually believe this stuff, guys. Again, AOC, I think, is a very low IQ person. She will run for president someday. We'll see how that goes. She'll probably be the leader in the House for the Democrats at some point. She seemingly is the future of the party, even though she can't really string together a coherent thought. But this young lady, there's no way she actually believes that a boy can become a girl. She just doesn't believe that. Because she's not the smartest person. She's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but she can still cut an edge, right? She can still do something. They don't actually believe this. These people refuse to live in reality. Like, they want certain things to be true, but only on a political side of things. So think about it this way. We're seeing all this shift, right? We're seeing this shift from these companies, Target and Disney and all these companies, these super woke companies. They're signaling like, oh, we're going to get rid of our, trans storylines in our next Pixar thing. And we're going to get rid of our DEI policies, even though we're just renaming it and keeping the same employees in place doing the exact same things they were doing on a daily basis. It's all signaling. These people are thermometers, right? Like, if Kamala Harris had been elected, they would have doubled down on DEI. They would have doubled down on all the trans stuff. They would have put a second, Disney would have put a second, trans character in the Pixar, thing that's coming up, right? But they're all just thermometers. These people don't actually believe these things to be true. So when the American public finally gets fed up with it and says, okay, we're done with the charade. We're done playing games. I'm over it, right? I'm over thinking about this and pretending that you guys, I thought y'all were going to chill out and just leave us alone, and you're not leaving us alone. So you know what? We're going to hire the orange guy. We're going to put him back in charge, and we're going to let him get after it. We're going to let him wreck shop. And so at this point, we need to remember Democrats voting in ways like this because they're signaling exactly who they are. All right, last quick hitter here. The death of the most evil woman on earth. The absolute death of the most evil woman on earth. So this is according to Daily Wire on January the 20th. Cecile Richards, the former president of abortion giant Planned Parenthood, has died at age 67. Richards announced in 2024 that she was battling a glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer. This morning, our beloved Cecile passed away at home, surrounded by her family and her ever-loyal dog, Ollie, Richards' family said in a statement released on Monday, according to NBC News. Our hearts are broken today, but no words can do justice to the joy she brought to our lives. We are grateful to the doctors and healthcare workers who provided her excellent care and the friends, family, and well-wishers who have been at her side during this challenging time, the family added. Richards, who led Planned Parenthood from 2006 to 2018, oversaw the killing of nearly 4 million unborn babies, according to the nonprofit Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. She oversaw the murder of 4 million babies in 12 years. So let's do a comparison of evil here by comparing Cecile Richards to some of the demonic leaders that we saw in the 20th century, shall we? So we have Mao Zedong of China, killed somewhere in, all these are going to be estimates, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 75 million people. Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 million people. Adolf Hitler of Germany killed somewhere between 17 and 20 million people. Hideki Tojo of Japan killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 million people. Vladimir Lenin of the Soviet Union killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 million people. Kim Il-sung of North Korea, somewhere between 1.6 to 3.5 million people. Pol Pot of Cambodia, 1.5 to 2 million people. Ho Chi Minh of Vietnam, 1 to 2 million people. Saddam Hussein, 250,000 to 1 million people. And Benito Mussolini of Italy, 300,000 to 400,000 people. So we look at the 20th century rightly as the bloodiest and most satanically evil century that we've ever lived through, right? That we have on record. So Cecile Richards, president of a company, right, in America, is somewhere in the neighborhood of Hideki Tojo, Vladimir Lenin, Kim Il-sung, and Pol Pot. That is her contribution to humanity. Doesn't that put it in perspective? One company that she was in charge of, dictator of, for 12 years and oversaw the deaths of 4 million image bearers of God. And not only that, she oversaw and encouraged those murders and profited off of those murders of over 4 million innocent babies. Okay? Because a lot of people like to get into the weeds. Well, how many people did Hitler actually kill? Like, was his finger actually on the trigger? Yeah, I think we can dispense with all that philosophical nonsense. Okay? So she is directly responsible for killing 4 million babies. So big takeaway here. Even though we have no indication that this happened, I honestly and fervently hope that she repented of her sins and put her faith in Christ before she died. Honest to goodness. But if she didn't, I hope that she is currently burning in the hottest part of hell. All right, guys, that'll do it for today. Before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted.Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. So, got a link to where you can donate to Undaunted.Life, donation-based ministry, Undaunted.Life/donate. Go there and become a monthly donor. Also, our Dominion program, that's our coaching program. If you want more information on that and you want to join the wait list, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Got a link to the Church of 1122 Men's Conference. Again, guys, get your tickets, book your tickets to come fly out and hang out with us. We'll have a good time. And then I've got a link to everything that I talked about in the quick hitters. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.